presentation, so if everyone can just settle down real quick. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I want to thank everybody for coming. Alhamdulillah, I know we've been putting these programs on for a few months, and it's always nice to see the crowd. Inshallah, we'll have more and more people coming. We have fantastic programs lined up. Some of you may have been aware, but we'll have programs with guest speakers on the 1st and 3rd of every Friday. And the 2nd and 4th will be different programs and tafsirs by Hafiz Rabbani. And he has volunteered his time as well to do special programs for those Friday evenings. So they won't just be tafsirs of the Quran specifically, but specific programs. So please kind of keep that on your schedules. We'll send out information. But I want to introduce our guest speaker tonight, Sheikh Azfar Uddin. He's actually from the Chicago area. He's the Imam of the Masjid, the Islamic Foundation North, correct? And he also has a YouTube channel. Give me the name again, bro? Concise Advice. So you can look him up on the YouTube channel as well and give him a thumbs up. Inshallah, without further ado, Sheikh Azfar Uddin. Do you have the mic? Let me make sure. Testing 1, 2, 3. No. Are you okay to answer? Okay, let me see if I can get it back. Get it set up in the middle. Yeah, we can do that. I'll give you.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. قال تعالى: أفلا تعقلون؟ وقال تعالى: أفلا يتدبرون القرآن؟ وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: ليس الشديد بالسرعة، إنما الشديد الذي يملك نفسه عند الغضب، وكما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. I'm not a lecturer, I'm an educator by profession, and this is not a khutbah. Educators enjoy having participants involved in the presentation. This won't be a class, but it will be informal. And for it to be beneficial as it can be, I need your participation. So I'm going to be asking you to participate not only with myself, but also with each other. One of the challenges is when you open it up like this, sometimes it can get out of hand. So when I ask a question and I ask you to talk with your partner, and when I raise my hand, I would appreciate it if you could raise your hand, and then we will share whatever discussion that you guys were having. Okay, inshallah, let's begin. In 1995, psychologist Daniel Goleman published a book introducing most of the world to this idea called emotional intelligence. This was a theory that was also formed by two other psychologists. This idea that our ability to manage our emotions greatly increases our chances of success, this idea took off right away in 1995. The basic idea of emotional intelligence at that time was, just as people have a wide range of intellectual abilities, people also have a wide range of emotional abilities and emotional skills. What was his argument in this book? His main argument was, emotional intelligence is just as important as IQ, perhaps even more. And his proof was, one day he walked into a room full of leaders and CEOs, about 400 leaders and CEOs, and he asked them, how many of you, raise your hand, are valedictorians? Only 3 raised their hand. This shows that people who have high IQ, they are working under those people who have high emotional intelligence. And then he says, without emotional intelligence, a person can have first-class training, an incisive mind, and an endless supply of good ideas, but he still won't be effective. Why won't he be effective? Because he cannot manage his own emotions, nor can he manage the emotions of other people. That's why emotional intelligence is even more important than IQ. Emotional intelligence affects your professional life. Emotional intelligence affects your personal life, your professional life, your social life, and your interpersonal aspects of one's life. So I have a question for all of you. Just because someone has a high IQ, does that necessarily mean they have a high EQ? Does that mean they are high in emotional intelligence just because someone is an intellectual? Raise your hand if you think yes. Raise your hand if you think no. You are correct. There is no correlation. We all know someone who could be an academic. Perhaps they have a PhD, but they can't manage their own emotions, nor can they manage the emotions of others. They don't know how to read other people and their feelings. It could also be someone who has a low IQ and a low emotional intelligence. You definitely don't want to be in that category. And then we have the category of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who had a high IQ and high EQ. After this book on emotional intelligence, after it was published, many people started discussing this concept. And the definition at that time, in 1995, of emotional intelligence was the ability to monitor your own emotions as well as the emotions of others, to distinguish between and label different emotions correctly, and to use emotional information to guide your thinking and influence that of others. As the world has evolved, the definition of emotional intelligence has also evolved. It's been 25 years plus since this book came out. The most up-to-date definition on emotional intelligence is the ability to make emotions work for you instead of against you. How can you make your emotions work for you instead of against you? That's going to be the question for today. That's the primary objective of today's presentation. How can you make your emotions work for you instead of against you? So inshallah we'll answer this question and we're done with this presentation. To help us understand the full scope of emotional intelligence and to help us answer this question, Brother Daniel Goleman came up with a 4-ability framework: self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, and social skills. So we'll start off with self-awareness. This is your ability to understand your own emotions and how they affect you. Ibn Arabi, a philosopher, he said, whoever recognizes himself recognizes his Lord. Whoever knows himself and understands himself, that's the first stepping stone to knowing his Lord. This shows that although the term emotional intelligence was coined in 1995, our scholars and our philosophers were discussing this concept way before. So this concept is not new. Our scholars and our philosophers have been discussing this concept way before Daniel Goleman. Allah says over 1400 years ago, whoever purifies their nafs, they have succeeded. Whoever purifies their soul, they have succeeded. Can you purify your soul if you don't know your soul? No. Here Allah is telling us that we have to know ourselves if we want to be successful. You have to have high self-awareness. Imam Ghazali writes in The Alchemy of Happiness, who are you? Many times when I ask this question to my musallis, I ask them, who are you? They respond by saying, I'm a physician. I'm a chiropractor. I'm an educator. I said, brother, I didn't ask what is your profession. I asked, who are you? What are your passions? What are your desires? How do you want to be remembered when you pass away? What do you want people to say at your janazah? Raise your hand if you've thought of that question. What do I want people to say at my janazah? Has anyone ever thought of that question? If you want high self-awareness, you got to be able to answer the question, who are you? And if you want to be able to answer the question, who are you? What better way to answer this question of what do I want out of my life than asking yourself, what do you want people to say about you at your funeral? What do you want your eulogy to be? For the next 30 seconds, we're going to be silent. Fast forward 40 years later, 60 years later, it's your janazah. The imam stands and he asks your family members, what should I say about this person who is deceased, who is you? At my masjid, I ask, because I try to follow my teacher, Maulana Abdullah Salim, whenever he would give a eulogy, doesn't matter who it would be, he would give a heartfelt eulogy. And I'm like, does he really know all of these people? I found out no. He would make a sincere dua for them after knowing them. because that's one of the keys to, when Prophet ﷺ said, when you pray the janazah salah, offer a sincere dua for the deceased. How are you going to offer a sincere dua for the deceased if you don't know that person? So I like to also ask the family members when they come up to me and say, when I find out that they have passed away, I call them and I ask, what can I say about the deceased? And wallahi, I can't tell you the number of times they say, just say he was a good brother. You sure you don't want me to add anything? Think about this question, my respected listeners, for the next 30 seconds. Let's be silent. What do you want people to say at your funeral? With the partner to your right or with the partner to your left, go ahead and share. What do you want people to say at your funeral? When I raise my hand, you also please raise your hand and be silent. I'll give you 3 minutes, inshallah. Go ahead. A conversation you definitely want to have with your family members, and when it's time to come, your family members will be able to give the imam some good information so you have something to be remembered by. Once again, Imam Ghazali writes, who are you? What are your passions? What are your desires? Where did you come from? فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ? Where are you going? What is happiness? And where does happiness lie? What is misery? And where does misery lie? When does your iman increase? It is from the intelligence of the servant to know when his or her iman is increasing. And it is from the intelligence of the servant to know when the whispers of shaitan appear to him. Knowing yourself is the stepping stone to knowing Allah. To do this, recognize how your emotions help increase your iman or hinder your iman? What can you do to increase your self-awareness? Does anyone want to share? What do you do, brother, to increase your self-awareness?
Write things down.
Very nice. Right? Raise your hand if you write in a journal. Writing in a journal, just one person. This is not just for sisters. This is not just for elementary students. We need to have this habit of writing down our day, writing down the stress of our day. Reflection is another one. You don't have to be bombarded by news all day. Oh, master screen, tell me what I should know today. Does anyone have a limit on their screen time? I highly recommend that you limit your screen time. Now, I do understand sometimes we want to relax the body, we want to relax the mind. A few minutes of WhatsApp, a few minutes of social media, fine. The problem is when you allow that device to control you. We'll never say this out loud. We will never say this out loud. But we have become slaves to our phones. The second tip to increase your self-awareness, what this brother mentioned, what is your name, brother?
Ismail.
Ismail, and that is writing in a journal. I really like this journal. You go to the date, there's 365 questions, so you go to the date, and then there's a prompt. There's a question to learn more about yourself. Ideally, a Muslim psychologist and a scholar would come up and write the questions on this journal. But until that happens, then I would recommend you buy this journal. This is a journal prompt that asks questions to increase your self-awareness. And self-awareness is one of the 4 components of emotional intelligence. So here are some of the questions they ask in this journal. What are your emotional habits? What are your emotional strengths? What are your emotional weaknesses? How does your mood affect your thinking and your decision making? I asked this question a few weeks to a brother. He said, I noticed that when I'm sleepy, I get really angry, and especially when I'm about to lose it, when I am on the verge of burning out. So this happens, these kind of reflection happens when you take the time to ask yourself these questions. Self-awareness is the first component of emotional intelligence. The ability to understand your own emotions and how they can work for you. The second component I will discuss is self-management. How well are you able to manage your emotions under pressure? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about self-management and self-regulation, the strong is not the one who can overpower others. The strong is the one who can control, not his emotions, who can control his reaction to his emotions when he or she gets angry. I'll repeat that because many people translate it as the strong is the one who can control his emotions. More appropriate would be the strong is the one who can control his reaction to his emotions when he or she gets angry, because you can't always control your emotions. Now, does this hadith mean that we're never supposed to get angry? Raise your hand if you think yes, we're never supposed to get angry. Righteous anger is part of our deen. There are ayat in which Allah discusses His anger. غَضِبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَلَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ. Righteous anger is a quality of all of the Anbiya. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would not get angry for petty reasons. He would get angry when he noticed someone was living a luxurious life, and right next door, they don't even have their basic necessities. He would get angry. But he was not a person who would make choices based upon impulse. That's what this hadith is talking about. Reactive people, they're like a bottle of soda. If life shakes them up, the pressure builds. And then when you take off the lid, they blow up. I'm going to put this far away. I don't want it to blow up in my face. Whereas Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us that proactive people think before they act. They have this propensity to suspend judgment. They pause before reacting to a tense situation. They know that they cannot control what happens in their life. They cannot control what other people say about them. They cannot control what the jealous people and the haters say about them. But they can control their reactions to their emotions. Shake them all you want. Take off the lid. But they remain cool, calm, and collected. They are like a water bottle. What kind of person was Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Was he like a water bottle, or was he like a bottle of soda? I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. Just yell it out, yes or no. Was Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam a man who blamed his difficult circumstances? Did he blame Allah for never being able to see his father? The data shows that we all need a fatherly figure. The data shows those who don't have a fatherly figure in their life much more likely to engage in drugs, much more likely to become an alcoholic, much more likely to engage in premarital intimacy, much more likely to get incarcerated. We all need a fatherly figure. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not blame Allah for not ever seeing his father. Did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam blame Allah for growing up without a mother? Did he blame Allah for having his beloved wife and his beloved uncle pass away in the same year? Did he blame Allah for having to taste the bitterness of burying his own children? He did not blame his difficult circumstances. His mindset was, I am not the product of my circumstances. I am the product of my own actions and decisions. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam was like a water bottle. What about you? Are you like a bottle of water, or are you like a bottle of soda? If you say, I hate that guy, that individual was so racist, he ruined my day, you're kind of being on the borderline of being like a bottle of soda. If you say, I'm not gonna let his bad mood rub off on me, you're like a bottle of water. It's surprising to me that many families will go on these amazing vacations, especially in December break. Many of us went on vacations, and we saw these great scenery places all across America or outside the world, outside America. Yet these small external factors ruined our vacation. I went to Arizona a few weeks ago. Sedona. Anyone ever been to Sedona? If you enjoy hiking, I would recommend you go here. I went with a friend, and when we went to Flagstaff near Grand Canyon, it started to snow. My friend who was with me, he said, "This is such a buzzkill, man." I said, "What are you talking about?" "I left Chicago to leave the snow, and now here in Arizona it's snowing. This is such a buzzkill, it ruined my vacation." I asked, "Brother, can you control the weather?" He said, "No." I said, "Why are you getting upset over something you can't even control?" Stop being like a bottle of soda. Don't rely on external factors to become happy. The bad news, there's good news and there's bad news. The bad news is that we cannot control the emotion that we receive whenever someone makes a snarky comment about us. We can't control that emotion. When we get angry, you can't control it. That's the bad news. Think about what's the most hurtful comment that someone has said to you. So the bad news, once again, when someone says this hurtful comment, you cannot control the emotion we experience. But the good news is that we can control our reaction to those emotions. We can control our reaction to those emotions by focusing on our thoughts. As Dr. King mentioned, you can't prevent a bird from landing on your head, but you can prevent it from building a nest. You can't prevent it from building a nest, meaning you can't always prevent a negative thought from entering your mind, but you can prevent it from taking root. الذي يملك نفسه عند الغضب, as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam eloquently mentioned. If you can control your reaction to your emotions, you are strong, you're like a water bottle. The wife of Abu Lahab, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was called a bunch of nasty names. Many of them are mentioned in the Quran. One of those names that Abu Lahab's wife called him was Mudhammam. Mudhammam. Muhammad means the one who is praised. Mudhammam is the opposite, the one who has no honor. He was called this by the wife of Abu Lahab. The companion said, Ya Rasulullah, they're calling you a Mudhammam. What are you going to say? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, they're making fun of someone by the name of Mudhammam. They're mocking someone by the name of Mudhammam. Wa ana Muhammad. My name is Muhammad. I don't know who they're talking about. If you are able to control your response to your emotions, you are like a bottle of water. You have high self-regulation. The moment you can no longer control your reaction, not your emotion, the moment you can no longer control your reaction to your emotions, you are like a bottle of soda. The third concept of emotional intelligence is social awareness, the ability to accurately perceive the feelings of others and understand how those feelings influence behavior. The hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha showed that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam had high social awareness. He said to Aisha, I know when you're angry with me and I know when you're pleased with me. Aisha radiallahu anha said, how do you know that? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, when you are pleased with me, you say, La wa Rabbi Muhammad, by the Lord of Muhammad. And when you're angry with me, you say, La wa Rabbi Ibrahim, by the Lord of Ibrahim. Aisha radiallahu anha said, you're right. It's in Bukhari. Social awareness. All couples must have this. The ability to understand the emotional makeup of other people. There was a couple who have been married for over 60 years. They said that we made a pact over 50 years ago that when we get angry and the other person is yelling, the other person will not yell. Because if you have two people yelling, all you have is a lot of bad noise and vibrations. Therefore, when the husband is yelling, the wife must be the water. And when the wife is yelling, the husband must be the water. Social awareness is founded on the quality of empathy so that you can see someone else's perspective. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu's story comes to mind. He said, I used to be really hungry. This is in Bukhari as well. So much so, I would lie down on my stomach and I would put a stone on my belly because of my hunger. One day, I lied down in this manner in front of where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions would exit. When Abu Bakr passed by, I asked him about a verse of the Quran, hoping that he would satisfy my hunger and my thirst. The Sahaba had too much humility and dignity to say, food please. Abu Bakr radiallahu anh answered his question about the ayah. He did not know that he was hungry. He continued on to his house. Umar radiallahu anh passed by. Abu Hurairah asked him, can you explain me this verse of the Quran? Umar radiallahu anh explained the verse. He did not satisfy his hunger, and he continued. Abu al-Qasim sallallahu alayhi wasallam walks by. And before Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh could even ask, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, Labbaik ya Abahir. Come with me. And he gave him milk, and he satisfied his hunger and thirst. Another part of emotional intelligence is being able to deal with negative feedback. Has there ever been a time when someone gave you unconstructive negative feedback? And it made you feel great, didn't it? With your partner to your right or to your left, share a time when someone gave you negative feedback. How did it make you feel? How did you respond? Be honest with yourself. Go ahead, I'll give you a few minutes. Does anyone want to share what their negative feedback? Anyone want to share the negative feedback that someone gave them? How did you respond? Anyone brave enough? Yes, sister, go ahead.
One of my negative feedbacks is when I'm trying to say something, I just go on, I say it too long, so basically get to the point.
Okay. All right. So do you appreciate that someone actually took the time to say that to you, sister?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Well, usually it's a family member, and then it'll be your family, so you know that when you actually go out socially, that you're not doing that, you're doing something that what you do.
Okay, very nice. Al-mu'minu mir'atul mu'min. The believer is a mirror for another believer. We should be able to receive negative feedback. Anyone else want to share? Thank you for sharing, sister. Okay, that's okay. Empathy is one of the qualities of people who have high emotional intelligence. Does empathy mean that you agree with someone else's point of view? Is that what empathy is? No, it's not. It doesn't mean that you avoid conflict. Rasulullah ﷺ did not avoid conflict. They asked him, why is this Imam keep on reciting Surah Al-Ikhlas? It's in Ibn Kathir. Prophet ﷺ said, why are you asking me? Ask him. So he taught the companions that our job is not to avoid conflict. And when they asked him, when they asked the Imam, the Sahabi, why he keeps reciting Surah Al-Ikhlas, he said, Surah Al-Ikhlas is all about Allah, and I love my Allah. Learn to identify when they are getting upset. When you are receiving negative feedback, sometimes they're getting upset. And then deal with them in a way that you later don't have to regret. Don't burn bridges. Meet at a later time when it's not so tense. There's been a few times at my masjid, someone is sharing negative feedback, and I say, brother, let's meet in the restaurant. Well, let's meet at another time. It's not about agreeing with them. It's about striving to understand. Last week, I gave a khutbah as well at my masjid about visiting the sick. A brother came up to me afterwards and he said, Imam, that was a great khutbah. The content was great, but the timing was a little off. So what do you mean the timing was off? It's winter. A lot of people are getting sick in the winter. Yeah, the majority of the brothers and sisters are the elderly. He said, yeah, but brother, the youth are here as well. And, you know, we probably should have spoken about a topic that will relate to them. So you're saying visiting the sick only applies to the elderly? Do you have kids? Yes, I have kids. Do you want your kids to visit you when you get sick? You know, when you put it that way, of course. But I would have hoped that you would have spoken about how to tackle the new year. I said, in the first 5 minutes of my khutbah, in my masjid, we give a 30-minute khutbah, so I had more time. So in that khutbah, I spoke about 10 areas we need to focus on so that you can become a balanced human being. Mental health, physical health, spirituality, money. There's 10 areas. I said, tackle these 10 areas, focus on these 10 areas, you will be able to become a more balanced and fulfilling, you will have a fulfilling life, inshallah, in the year 2020. He said, oh, I came 10 minutes late, I missed that part. I took my students, my HSYC Sunday school students, to the old folks' home. They played games with them, with the elderly. Many of them were sick. They had dementia. And then afterwards, I asked all of them, so what did you think? Almost all of them said, Wallahi, Imam, I thank Allah for being able to breathe without another instrument. I thank Allah for my legs. I thank Allah for my sanity, for my mind. When you visit the sick, you can internalize the hadith. انظروا إلى من هو أسفل منكم. Rasulullah ﷺ said, look at those who have less than you. Then I was still speaking with that brother who was giving me this negative feedback. I said, that's your son, right? He said, yeah. I said, you gave him a phone, right? He's 14 years old, 15 years old. He said, yeah. I said, he has access to social media? He said, yes. I said, what do you think he's doing on social media? Do you think he's looking at those who have less than him? He's looking at those who have more than him. He's comparing his low light to someone else's highlight. And you wonder why the depression and anxiety is skyrocketing amongst our teenagers. This is what they're doing. They're comparing their lives to someone else's life, and they're not visiting the sick. At an Imam's conference last year, my Sheikh Amin, he said, whenever someone is about to give him negative feedback, he says, I have empathy with them, but I also expect them to have empathy with myself. And I say, before I allow you to speak with myself, and I will be silent for 5 to 10 minutes. I will listen and try to understand your point of view. But when it's my turn, I also expect 5 to 10 minutes of no interruption. If you agree, then go ahead and share your negative feedback. If you don't agree, Assalamu alaikum. And the last concept of emotional intelligence is relationship management. The ability to get the most out of your connection with others. The ability to influence others through your communication and behavior. Instead of forcing your ideas on someone else, you use inspiration, you use motivation. When Rasulullah ﷺ returned to Mecca after 20 years of persecution, after 20 years of injustice, he could have slaughtered them. But he said the same thing what Yusuf alayhi salam said to his brothers. Al-yawm yaghfirullahu lakum. Allah has forgiven you, I will forgive you. After he did this, he accomplished his purpose while increasing influence, and he turned his enemies into followers, not through force, through inspiration. This is the fourth aspect of emotional intelligence, social skills. So each of these four abilities are interconnected with one another, and they complement each other. Naturally, you will excel at one of these concepts, and you may need to work on another concept. How can I strengthen my emotional intelligence? I'll give you 3 tips. Number 1, similar to leadership, those who are not gifted in EQ, they can help themselves by watching others who do have high emotional intelligence. So watch and learn from those who have high emotional intelligence. Number 2, identify your personal traits and weaknesses and tendencies through reflection, through writing in a journal. Like I said, that brother said, I noticed I'm not myself when I'm sleepy. I make irrational decisions. Notice these tendencies about yourself. When does your iman decrease? It is from the intelligence of the servant to know when it increases and when it decreases. And number 3, develop personalized, customized strategies to maximize your strengths and to minimize your weaknesses. I make dua to Allah, Ya Allah, make us amongst those who have high emotional intelligence. To recap, our ability to understand and manage our emotions greatly increases our chances of being successful in this world and in the hereafter. Before you leave, inshallah, I would greatly appreciate it. I do this for all my presentations. if you can please take a note card, grab a pen or pencil, and answer these 4 questions. What was the most important lesson you learned? How will you apply what you learned? Write down one question or comment that you have, and what is one thing that you did not like about my presentation? I'm sure you can find many flaws. So if you could answer, I would greatly appreciate it. You don't have to, but if you could take this note card and write down these 4, answer these 4 questions, I'd greatly appreciate it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.